Greetings, greetings. This is A Vision Entertainment once again, and we have another special show. Philadelphia, get ready to turn it up. She's the voice of your lunch break and the heartbeat of the city's midday rhythm. Whether she's rocking the midday movement or bringing you the hottest tracks on the midday mixtape, she keeps their energy high and the vibes authentic. A proud Trinidadian, a dedicated advocate for preemie families, and your favorite radio bestie. Please welcome the one and only from the Rise and Grind Morning Show, Roxy Romeo. How are you?
I am good. How are you? You definitely got that down.
I'm great. I'm great. I had to bring you on correct so people can know who I have in front of me. How did you bring in your New Year's? How did you do that?
It was very low key. I was in Miami,
Oh,
by
okay.
family, went to my aunt's house. So, we did a little something over there. Just family. That's it. Nothing
Okay.
crazy.
Family and a little quiet time for you, right?
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Can you take me back to the Roxy who was trying to find herself and what led you into the entertainment industry?
Um, my gosh, this is very long ago. So it's interesting because up until I was like 17, I actually wanted to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I graduated high school and I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I don't know what I want to do. So I went to the University of Central Florida in Orlando. I was undeclared. And it was my first year. Sometime in my first year, I was part of the Caribbean Student Association. And one of my friends who was Jamaican, she asked me if I wanted to do like an underground show on a underground Caribbean station. And I was like, I've never done radio. I've never done
Yeah.
anything like that, but I'll try it. And I
Yeah.
tried it and I ended up loving it. And so from that point on, I got the radio bug. I changed my major to communications. I did an internship while I was there. And from that point on, I was like, this is what I want to do.
So it was on from there. Now, as
Yeah.
far as the lawyer, let's go back to, you wanted to go for law in school,
Yeah.
right? What was that inspiration that made you wanted to do that? And you know, but
I've always been interested. Well, I think a lot of people are like this, but I love law shows, Law and Order,
yeah.
NCIS, all of the different law shows. I loved them,
Mhm.
and I am very good at arguing.
Oh,
And I do,
okay.
I do a lot of
Yeah.
research, right? And it's like
Yeah.
anytime I'm like, I argue my point very well, and I'm like, I could do
Wow.
this.
Like the DA, like you just argued your point.
Exactly.
Wow, wow. Well, what was the first project or moment on air where you realized you were exactly on the right career path?
I don't know if there was one specific moment.
Okay.
Um, to be honest, I mean, it was just like I just always from that point on when I had done that underground show. Well,
Mhm.
actually, you know what? This was actually not on air.
Okay.
So this was kind of a little glimmer of like, okay, this really might be what I'm supposed to do, or this might be the right path. So I ended up leaving Orlando
Okay.
and I ended up going back to Miami. And I went there with no job. I didn't know,
Wow.
like, I just wanted to go back home, right? Because Miami was home for me, right?
Okay.
And I started cocktailing. I was a
Okay.
cocktail waitress
Yeah.
to make money. And iHeart in Miami was hiring for a part-time promotions assistant. Okay. And I applied, and there was about 15 people that applied that was actually in the room. So I assume that there were more people that applied, but they brought, I guess, the top 15.
Yeah.
And
15.
I
Yeah.
mean, this was a little part-time promotions assistant, okay? But 15
Wow.
of us are in the room and only two were getting hired. And
Wow.
out of those 15 people, I was one of the
It was
two
one
that
of
got
them.
hired. Right.
Wow.
So that was, I guess, like I wasn't on air at that time, but it was a little glimmer of like, okay, out of all these people I got picked, I was like, maybe I need to really, explore this for real.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always wanted to ask this question. When you start, when they asked you, presented the job to you about being a radio host, talking on air, what are the steps you had to take to actually get to that point? Like, did they send you to a class? Did you had to do like what did you do to get up to that point?
So that was a me decision, right? They don't ask you to be on air. If that's something that you want to do, that's something that you have to work for, right?
Okay.
So there's something called an air check or a demo, essentially, not an air check, a demo, where you have to put together like 2 minutes, 3 minutes of different breaks
Oh,
that you
oh,
do. Now, for me, I had never been on air, so these are all mock breaks, fake breaks, of what I would sound like if I was on the radio. And so I had to submit my air check, right? My
right.
demo to the program director. And there were two different stations that I was kind of like doing this for, but I would go submit my air check and then they would come back with critique and they'd tell me this is good, this is bad, work on this, work on that. And then once they give me that I go back and I do it again and I do it again and I do it again until they finally say, "Okay, you might be ready."
That's right. Wow. So were you nervous when you first started, when you actually got in that chair? Were you nervous?
Oh, 100%.
Wow. Wow.
My first shift was on 103.5 The Beat in Miami, a hip hop station, and it was a Sunday morning shift, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. I think it was, and I forgot to turn the mic on. So I was
Oh,
doing breaks with like the bed playing and nobody
wow.
heard me. I don't even
Wow.
know at what point I realized the
That
mic
it was
was not
off.
on and I'm like, "Oh my God." So
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Well, so that was just one, that was one incident. Sometimes, that's what happens. We be nervous at times.
Yeah.
That's what, wow, you're a national voice. How do you maintain the bestie connection with listeners? And what's the most profound listening story that stuck with you?
Oh my gosh. So, I'm on social media, people hit me up and I respond. You know what I mean? I can't say I
Yeah,
respond every time,
not every time.
but I really, really try to respond. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but
Yeah,
that I don't ignore people, right? I don't ignore people. If you DM me, if you comment on a post or something like that, being here, if people
yeah,
call, I pick
yeah.
up the phone. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's one way that I stay connected. And I've actually created real relationships through,
Oh,
the radio and through Instagram.
mhm, mhm.
And so like you asked me for a profound story. I don't know if this is profound, but when I had my son, my first child,
Yeah,
me being a new mom, I did not know what I was doing. I
okay.
still feel like I don't, but I
Yeah.
I did not know what
Sometimes,
I was doing,
yeah,
right?
first time.
So I would talk about, the struggles that I would have on the radio and, I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to do that. And I would get a lot of moms sliding in my DMs with advice and suggestions
Okay.
and people calling in. And there was one particular mom that I just really connected with. We had kids close to the same age, around the same time.
Yeah.
And she just gave me such great advice and like sent me to so many great resources. And
Mhm.
that Instagram connection became a real life connection where we're now friends in real life.
Wow, that's amazing. But some people really expect more, especially when you move them in a certain way or help them. It's like they want you to actually pay attention to them at all times, or either give them that special attention. Do you have those issues with certain people that actually keep calling, and those regular people that keep calling you?
Actually, no. There's nobody that's like pushy, in regards to that.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and like I said, like, I keep the connection with people when it comes to like social media. And for the most part, people are happy with just the fact that I'm
Right.
responding, and if they call, I know their name because I
Mhm.
really do remember everybody's, most people's names that I start talking to more
Yeah.
frequently. So, no, I haven't had anybody that's like super pushy, at least not here.
But that's amazing, though. How do you protect your own emotional energy when you have to pivot, like from tragic stories to lighthearted segments in a matter of seconds? How do you change that up like that?
Um, I'm just genuine, to be honest with you. Like if I have a story that I'm doing that's really heartbreaking for me, I
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
how emotional it is for me and how it affects me. And I that has happened many times. You know,
Okay.
I things hit different when you become a parent. And when I happen to talk about things that have happened to a child or something, it really hits different and I talk about those things. So I I'm just real genuine, you know. If something is good at 1 minute and the next it's not, I mean, I'm just very honest about it.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I can tell that you really enjoy what you're doing. Is it like therapeutic for you to be on the air?
I don't know if I call it therapeutic. Um, no, I wouldn't say it's therapeutic, but
Okay.
I do enjoy what I do. I mean,
Very good.
and to be honest, I sit there and I think about it, and I'm like, what else would I be doing if it wasn't this? Because I love to talk.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like, I feel
yeah.
like I'm in the perfect career. Um,
Wow.
I just enjoy it. I just enjoy it. Yeah, I just enjoy it.
Can you share a specific challenge or whenever you felt devastating but ended up shaping your career? Was this something that made you feel devastating, but it ended up shaping your career for the better?
Oh, for sure. So like I said, I'm from Miami,
Yeah.
and you know, I think a lot of people feel the way I feel. You know, you want to make it in your city,
Okay.
right? So when I was in Miami, I wanted to make it in Miami. I wanted to make it in my city, and it just wasn't happening. You know,
Yeah.
I worked for 9 years in a
Wow.
department in for iHeartRadio, but it was not on air. It was the traffic department, and traffic, they deal with commercials. They schedule commercials, they deal with like
Awesome.
all that, and it's just a very tedious job. And
Mhm.
I knew that I it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life, right? But I took the job because I wanted to be full-time in the building. And so I was doing on-air work after I got off my 9 to 5. Then I went into a studio and I did my on-air work, but I wanted that on-air work to be my full-time job.
Yeah.
And I applied several times when opportunities arose, when jobs rose, full-time jobs arose in the
You
building. I
applied.
applied multiple times and I never got it. I think I got turned down 3 different times.
Oh,
And the
wow.
third time was the probably the most devastating for me because I really, really believed that I had it. I really thought I deserved it.
Mhm.
I was doing nights on that particular station, and it was, you know, it wasn't live, and they were looking for, I think, a midday person, and that would have been like a live shift. And I was like, I got this in the bag. Like I'm gonna, and they ended up giving it to another girl that was not
So
on the station, or if she was, she might have been doing weekends, right? But I was on every night and I still did not get that job. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, that was it. If this did not happen, I need to leave. And so I started applying elsewhere and I got a midday job in Vegas. And that turned into me becoming the music director and the music director and the assistant program director of that station. And then that led me to Philly.
wow, and there you go. So, all of that put you to where you are today, you know, and that's great. And I know you have more stories like that because one thing about this industry, anything you want that's hard to get into, you're going to have to jump some hurdles to get
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You're going to get to no, the door slammed in your face. You just got to keep pushing like you did, you know. I know we spoke just briefly, and also you have some stories out there about your baby being born prematurely. Can we talk about March for Babies and why that
Oh, March of
organization,
Dimes. Hmm.
yeah, and why that organization is so important to you?
Um, so when so I went into preterm labor with my daughter, in 2022, in like November, end of November, and I was only 5 months and a couple weeks, and it
Wow.
was shocking. It was unexpected, and I didn't know anything about prematurity. And she was born at 26 weeks, and she spent 3 months in the hospital before I could take her home. And you know, so the executive director of March of Dimes for this area, her name is Allison Lang, and I knew her because she was part of a different organization a couple of years prior. And when she found out my story, she reached out to me, and she's really just embraced me and helped me. That is kind of like therapy for me because I had, I guess it's kind of like survivor's guilt in a way because my daughter spent 93 days in the NICU. And when you are a parent, especially for the first time that has a child in the NICU, you don't know you just think the worst, right? And my daughter was born 2 pounds 6.7 ounces, and so she was so tiny in this little incubator, and all I can see is this little tiny baby that's hooked up to all these wires and
Tires.
tubes. And so
Yeah.
to me, I was thinking the worst, like I might end up going home without a child. And now that I know what I know, I realize that she was actually doing really well from the beginning. She
Wow.
never had any major complications, but I know women, after being in this space now for a while, I know women that have lost babies.
Yeah.
Or their children have lifelong health issues. And so I had like kind of like survivor's guilt that like my child is perfect. She's amazing. She's
Yeah.
healthy and she's happy. And so many other moms, that was not their outcome.
Right.
And Allison helped me realize like you can't feel bad for that, and people need to hear your story. They need to hear the positive side of this. And so I love March of Dimes for I love Allison, and I love March of Dimes
Yeah.
for helping me to realize that, and sharing my they've allowed me to share my story so many times and help so many people. They've given me a platform and a stage so many times. I mean, my family was the ambassador family for
Mhm.
March of Dimes for Prematurity Month for November.
Yeah.
So it's been really therapeutic, and they do great work on top of that. They're a national organization that have so many incredible resources for families that are dealing with prematurity and kids in the NICU.
Wow. How old is your baby now?
She turned 3 on December 4th.
Wow. And she grew, right? She's big. She grew up, right?
Well, she's still small. She's still small. She's still a little girl,
But
but she's incredible. She's sassy. She's amazing.
yeah, yeah. And I know, and you're gonna look one day and say, wow, she's gonna be, six, then seven. Like, you know how it go. Sometimes I think about that when a baby is born prematurely. Is it a reason? Do the doctors say is a reason, or is it something that just happened out of nowhere? Like, is it with the father or the mother, or how does that happen?
So that it's sometimes it can be answered, but not all the time. So for my situation, I don't know why.
Okay.
um and it is something that has kind of haunted me, to be honest with you, since it happened, because as a mom, when this happened, you blame yourself. You're like, did I do something wrong? Did I sit the wrong
Wow.
way? Did I eat the wrong thing? You just don't know. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, doctors don't always have the answer. um Infection can bring on prematurity. So if a mother ends up getting an infection, that could cause preterm labor.
Right.
Or if there's some sort of a fall or a hard hit on the stomach, that could also cause preterm labor. But I didn't have an infection and I didn't fall. I was dealing with some spotting and
Okay.
some pain. Um, it was around Thanksgiving, and I flew to Orlando to spend it with my brother,
Yeah.
and my son was sitting on my lap, and I sat there and I thought maybe he was pushing on my stomach too hard.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
that's why, I it might have brought on preterm, labor. I don't know. The
Yeah.
spotting ended up being nothing, but the pain that I was feeling for probably 4 days or 5 days
Oh,
before I actually
wow.
went to the hospital, it was
Mhm.
contractions, and I had no idea.
Oh, all that time you didn't know it was contractions.
I
Wow.
just I thought it was like, oh, this baby's just so big and they're just like pushing down on my stomach. That's what I thought it was. And then when I went in because of the spotting, they were like, the spotting is nothing. Like that's nothing to worry about. But they were like, you do know you're having contractions. I'm like, no.
Wow. So that calls for a early labor once that started
I
happening.
mean, the thing is I was told that I was also a little dehydrated, and
Oh, okay.
dehydration can cause premature contraction. So if you hydrate yourself, they could go away,
Okay.
and then it
Wow.
might end up being nothing. But unfortunately, that was not my situation.
Just one more question about that. How much family support you had going through that? And not the March of Dimes, but your family.
Like my family, yeah.
Your family.
It was I had a lot of love, from my family, but my family is not in Philadelphia. So I didn't have any actual physical help
Right around you.
other than my mom, right? So when I came out, like, because I had to spend, a couple days in the hospital after I did the emergency C-section. So I had to recover from the C-section, which is the worst pain I've ever felt in my whole life. But my mom came and stayed with me for like 6 weeks
Okay.
to help me, do all the things that I needed to do. And then I went back to work. So she left. I went back to work for about a month and a half,
Yeah.
month and a half before they let my daughter out of the NICU. And then she came back.
Hmm.
And I think my dad actually came for a period of time too. But my mom was literally, aside from my husband, who's amazing, my mom was my rock.
Right.
She was like literally there for me because we life goes on, right? So we still have bills to pay. So my husband still had to work. I had to work when I was able to. So yeah, my mom was the one who traveled back and forth as much as she needed to be with me.
Well, great. I'm glad everything worked out. Everything went well. You know,
Thank
is
you.
there, you're welcome. Is there a significant difference between the person we hear on the air and the person you are when the on air light goes out?
So if you had asked me that like 10 years ago, I would
Yeah.
probably say yes.
Okay.
But not really. Um, because so when you and I don't know if this is how it is for everybody in radio, but like when I first got into radio, the first few years, you're you're just trying to like master this skill of talking on a mic and sounding good and delivering good breaks, right? And so including your personality sometimes doesn't always happen, right? Or it doesn't happen naturally, genuinely, organically, right? And so that's kind of like you weren't getting the real me in the beginning, right?
Okay.
And now that I've mastered all of that and it's natural to me.
Yeah.
Everything I am who I am. You get who I am on air. I think the only difference or the only thing is, and I think this is a misconception for probably a lot of people on the radio, is everybody just thinks because you're on the radio, you're like this outgoing, bubbly person,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
commands the attention of a room. But that
Yeah.
is actually not always the case, right? So
Okay.
I can be outgoing at times. I can be bubbly. I can do that at moments, but there's other times that you won't even know I'm in a room. Like I might be standing there and I'm just super quiet and to
Oh wow.
myself. And
Yeah.
so it
Quiet.
just kind of depends.
Wow. Well, let's go to this one. If your life had an actual theme song that played every time you walked in a room, what would it be?
Oh my God. Oh, you hit me with a hard one. Um, I do not know. I really do not know. It would, I have to think about what the song would be, but it would have to be something along the lines of like being a work in progress
Yeah.
and always working to find to learn myself better. Something I don't know if there's a song that goes with that. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Okay. Well, you'll come up with something a little later, I guess, before we break out of here. You know, beyond entertainment or information, what do you believe the fundamental service you provide to a lonely listener?
Um, well, I do provide information, right? Because I do deliver a lot of different stories, news, celebrity. I keep them up to date with everything. And like I said, when you call me, I pick up the phone, right? So I provide an ear for you to talk to.
Right.
And I like to play my callers on the radio, right? So, if you want to hear regular people, if you want to hear people in your community, you can tune in. You'll hear me play callers that call in. And I'm very into like nonprofit work.
Okay.
I commend so many nonprofit people that have nonprofits, activists, and stuff like that for all of the great work that they do in the community. And I think a lot of times people don't get the recognition they deserve. And I think that the work could be amplified. The work could reach so much further if people knew that they existed. So I do have a lot of nonprofit people on to talk about their organizations. And so that's another key element of it. And then, of course, I do the celebrity interviews and stuff like that. So I definitely provide entertainment. I definitely provide information, and I provide, an ear for you to talk to. I am not a diva in any capacity. I think that might be another misconception, not necessarily for me, but I think people in media generally, like,
just
you just
think
assume
that.
that if you're in
Assume.
entertainment and you're in media, you're a diva. I'm so far from a diva. It's not even funny. I really am like that girl from down the street. Like, I'm so easy to talk to. I'm very approachable. Like, I'll have a conversation with anybody.
Wow, wow, wow. In a nutshell, huh? That's what it is. We had a
Mhm.
debate. We had a debate about Philly cheesesteaks, right?
Oh my
Now,
God.
on on your lunch break, if you decide to go get a steak, where are you going?
Okay, so first, let me say, being that I am from Miami, okay, I am not
Yeah.
a fan of cheesesteaks, right? Because
Okay.
and you could correct me, but I like lettuce on mine. I like tomatoes. So that is considered a hoagie, right?
A cheesesteak hoagie.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I prefer. But um so let me tell you the place that I went to that I oh, actually, Taste. Is it Taste? Yeah, Taste.
Taste. Where's it
Is it
located?
Taste? Why is that? Yeah, I think it's called Taste. Taste cheesesteaks, right? In Center City.
Taste. Wow. I
Oh my
don't.
God. I'm gonna look it up. Hold on. Let me make sure that I got the
Yeah.
right.
Taste. Are you?
Yes, Taste Cheesesteak Bar, 1809 John F. Kennedy Boulevard. Taste.
I'm. Yeah. You talk there right there. That's where they got salmon. They got salmon cheesesteaks and everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I went
Yes.
there a few times.
So
Yeah.
they got the jerk chicken cheesesteaks, all
They
of
got
that.
all
So
that. Yeah.
that is hands down. And shout out to Kevin, okay, because the owner, he's Haitian, and like you said, my fellow Caribbean brother,
Yeah.
Caribbean people know how to season their meat. So
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I love goat and lamb. So I go to that my specialty. So taste will be your taste is
oh
your
yeah, for sure.
okay. Well, that's great. You picked a nice spot. You did. Wow. If we can go back to your audience, right, your fans. How do you maintain a genuine connection with people you can't see?
You know, for as long as I've been doing this, I think it just really is your delivery. You
Okay,
know, I've been on the radio for
30
my
years.
first on-air job was 2008. Okay, so almost 20 years I've been on the radio. And after 20 years, I'm like, I hope by now I'm good at what I do, right?
Yeah. Huh.
But I just like when you first start, they always tell you put a picture of your best friend in front of you and pretend like you're talking to them. I don't need to do that anymore.
Okay.
I talk like we're having a conversation. You know what I mean? Like I just talk like we're having a conversation. So I would like to believe that like genuineness of conversation comes across on the mic. And then now, in this day and age, you got social media. So there's also that other level of like being able to connect there as well.
Wow. Wow. So now I can go into this question for that. What does authenticity means for you on the air? While being on the air, the radio host, what does authenticity mean to you?
I mean, I think it's just being 100% real, being 100% and genuinely who you are. I mean, I can't say that I, I mean, there's going to be moments, right, where certain things are probably masked a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not having a good day, I don't want you to feel that for an entire show. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Because I'm not trying to bring you down. I'm not trying to, dampen your mood. So I might mention the fact that, oh, I'm having a rough day or something like that. But for the most part, I suck it up and I still try to continue to be, the bubbly Roxy and be that friendly voice on the radio. But I think it's just being real, being who you are, and what you see is what you get, or what
I
you hear
think
is what you get.
yeah, what you hear is what you get. I think you will continue to go far just by being yourself, by doing,
Thank you.
you know, talking how you talk to people and just making them feel warm. I think that's make you go, that alone will make you just go further, in what you're doing. And people will keep coming to you, gravitating all the time. Wow. And we talked about Miami. How has Miami upbringing shaped your energetic on air persona and your approach to music? Let me say that again.
Um, so Miami is a very diverse and very eclectic city, right? So I love all kinds of music, right? So that's
Right.
first and foremost. I mean, my family is from Trinidad, so I love soca,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That's the top of the list, but I grew up like in Miami going to a lot of Caribbean parties and stuff. So I have such a love for like dancehall as well,
Dance hall.
reggae. But then, being so diverse, there's a lot of Hispanic people there, right? So I also love like, merengue and like Hispanic music, bachata and all that kind of stuff. I grew up
Okay.
dancing to all of that because my best friend was Dominican growing up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then, of course, still being in Miami, you can't not love Trina. You can't not love Trick Daddy. You can't not
Rick
love Uncle
Ross.
Luke.
Yeah, yeah,
Pitbull, exactly. So,
yeah.
they salute to all of the Miami artists because they were played, on the radio. So I heard all of that. But it's the diversity, it's the eclecticness, it's made me very open to like all kind of music, right? And
Wow.
so coming to Philly, I also opened myself up to like a lot of the artists that are, that I maybe didn't know. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay.
Um, but truth be told, you guys like Philly is like the epicenter, the mother of neo soul. And
Right.
I
Right.
love neo soul. Like I loved neo soul then, I love neo soul now. So I knew a lot of the neo soul artists anyway.
That's right. Wow. Because you on air and you do radio, and I got like two more questions. Because you on air and you do radio, how do you feel when you watching women, whether it's rappers, R&B singers, how do you feel when you see them on stage and they're not really representing right? Half naked clothes, twerking. How does that make you feel?
Um, Listen, I try not to be judgmental. It's not always easy, but I try not to judge, right? And there's a lane for everybody. Perfect example, Sexy Red, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, the young girls like her, you know what I mean? And even though I don't agree with her messaging, I, I don't agree with her messaging, right? And it's definitely not something that I co-sign,
Okay.
but she has a fan base and there are people that love her. So for that, I respect that and I'm not going to judge her on it, but I wish that, some of these younger females, um, it wasn't always about what's between their legs, It wasn't always, and the narrative changed even more because now they're bragging about how many men they sleep with, right? Like now they're bragging about that, they're doing the same things that guys do, They don't care what their number looks like. So yeah, I wish that wasn't, what they felt like they needed to talk about in order to be relevant.
Mhm.
Um, but unfortunately, we know that that's what sells. I've had this conversation so many times with people. There are female rappers out there that's not what they're doing. And
That's right.
unfortunately, they're not as big. Like Rhapsody is a perfect example. Rhapsody got some great music. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? And she's not shaking her ass and wearing next to nothing on stage. But
But
unfortunately,
she's not as big. She's not blowing up like,
exactly,
it's
exactly,
sad.
exactly.
This is what they want. They want that sexy uh uh they want the sexy strip club look. They don't want the professionalism. I don't know why it's like that. They just want.
I think also it's kind of like a situation where people just they're not thinking about like the moral side of it. They're not
Yeah,
thinking about like they're just thinking about the fact that they want to have fun. They're just thinking about the beat. They just thinking they want to shake their ass, and that's what like Sexy Red and some of the other girls provide. And that's all they care about is just having a good time.
that's right. That's right. Wow. Well, that conversation can go on and on and on. It can.
Yes.
I have just one more after this. And let's talk about just one more time, motherhood and women's health. You've spoken about motherhood. How has being a mom changed your perspective on women's health and empowerment?
Um, so okay, so the health portion of it, um, it makes me want to be healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, my kids are young and I want to be around
that's
for
right.
all their milestones. I mean, my kids, my son is 5, my daughter's 3. So they got a long way to go before they get to high school. I want to be there to see them graduate. I want to be there to see them walk down the aisle, to
Right.
see them have children and be able to spend time with my grandkids. Like, so health is wealth. And the only way that is going to happen is if I make sure that I keep myself healthy so that I have the longevity to last that long to be there for all of that. So in
Wow.
terms of women's health, it's extremely important. You know what I mean? What you eat, exercise, and all that stuff. And even mental health. Cannot forget mental health.
That's right. Right.
The self-care, do the little things, you know what I mean, that you need to. And I'm saying this and I don't always do it myself. Like it's something that I really need to work on.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think
It's easy to
a
put it
lot
out.
of us are workaholics. I know I'm a workaholic,
Me too. Yeah.
and so being a workaholic and then having to pivot to being a wife, being a mom, it doesn't leave a lot of time. But it's
Wow.
one of those things that you have to make time for, right? Um, and then what was the other part? It was health, and then what was the other one?
It was health and just wait. I'm sorry. It was health and like empowerment.
Oh, and women. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, um, this is what I will say. After becoming a mom, I I always heard this
Hmm.
and I believed it before I believed it, but I do believe that a lot of times women, when we become moms, we're not valued as much as men. I
Oh,
think a lot of times like in the workplace. I think a lot of times there are like employers look at women who have kids as like, she's gonna be a mom now. She might not be able to take on this, or
oh,
she
oh
might not
no.
be able to do that. You know what I mean? Whereas when it's the dads, it's like, oh my God, he's got kids. We got to give him this promotion because he's got a family to take care of. I do believe that that happens a lot, and so it has made me feel like women need to have each other's backs. We need to come together to fight for certain things because the reality is we all know that entertainment and beyond, there's many industries that are male dominated, right? And so until we step up and have each other's backs and support each other, it's going to be a slow climb. You know what I mean? For us to have the equality, pay disparity exists. I mean, so
Yeah.
there is a level of unity that women need to have overall in order to create that empowerment.
Mhm. You know what I think when you just mentioned something, I think it's because you just said it. You have a husband, you have to go home, you have to cook, you have to cater to your husband, to the children. I think with the higher ups, they probably believe that it's too much. Now
I,
you have a
you're
baby.
100% right.
So,
I
so,
fully
so
believe that.
yeah, they probably thinking, how can you maintain our or the company if you have all of these things to do? But as
I agree with you, but I also feel like, and me being, a modern woman, right?
yeah,
I also feel like, well, why don't you think that way about the men? Because they have the same kids that we do, and they have the same house we do. So why are men looked at differently to women?
it's 50-50 with men and women when we have kids, right? But we know that we can take the kid home, to the mother because that's a mother's, not that's a job, she nurture. So this is what I'm saying. Don't quote me on it, but I believe that because the man get to take the kid home, go back, and we do a lot. We have a big job to do in this world, like we do, and women does too. I'm not saying that you don't, but and it's kind of hard. You really don't know the reasons why they placed this person or that. You don't know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't,
true.
you know, I really don't. But we talked about on the days, let's say, you have your husband, you have your kids, you have to go home and cook, you have the radio show. On days when you aren't feeling your best, how do you find the energy to show up and be a personality for your audience?
That's what I get paid for. You know what I mean? Like, you just do it. You just have to do it. You know what I mean? I mean, if it's really, really that bad that it's truly affecting every fiber of my being, then I probably take the day off.
Mhm.
But I really don't do that very often because I just think that as women and as moms, like you just keep going. It's just like a part of your DNA that it's like, all right, next thing on the to-do list, you just do it.
Next, next.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. Just do it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Last question. What is the specific legacy or impact you hope to leave on your community through your work and advocacy?
Um, I want I want to be known as somebody that had a big heart.
Okay.
I want to be known as somebody that really championed um maternal health and women's issues.
Yeah.
Um, and I hope that that also includes bringing men into the fold and wanting to be a part of the journey and the fight to bring equality, to bring more equality, across the board. And then of course, being uh an amazing mom, I would hope people could see that as well, that my kids are everything.
Okay. Wow, viewers, we've just had a radio host legend. I want to call her a legend. She's been on the air for over 25 years, maybe more. I want to thank you, Roxy Romeo, for coming on to A Vision Entertainment. I thank you for that.
Tommy, I appreciate you for having me. Thank you. What's going on? It's Roxy Romeo, and you are watching A Vision Entertainment.